You guys have been asking for an updated settings video for Skid. Since the game is fully out now, a lot of people are wanting to dial in their settings to be similar to mine, or you just want some inspiration to change your settings up from default. Well, if you're looking for some realistic settings, which I think are dialed in pretty nicely, then you might want to copy mine. Give them a go and see what you think of them. I'm going to go through every single bit of my settings just to cover all bases, and you guys can decide what you want to copy. You know, some things might not be for you, but ultimately, if you want your game to look like what you're watching right now, you're going to want to copy my settings. So I'm going to go through every single section here. So we're going to start off on general. You'll notice that I have a very clear HUD. There's very little UI elements apart from the compass at the top. You can't get rid of that, unfortunately, but you can take off the rest of the elements. I turn off the score and ticker. This means that the little score icon in the corner is gone, and you don't get the audio from that either. So you don't have the audio for hitting a 3x multiplier, stuff like that. D-pad on HUD is hidden and flick visualizer is off. That's how you can achieve this nice clean HUD. One of the quality of life features that I really like in this game is enable session marker undo. So what that does, say that my session marker is here, right? Then if I tap up on the D-pad, you know, I'll go back to that session marker. But then say that I skated like really far away from that spot, and I accidentally hit up on the D-pad, and now I'm sent all the way back. If I tap it again really quickly, it'll send me back to that previous spot. You can also do the distance, so you can actually increase the distance like all the way up. It's kind of crazy how high you can put this, which basically means that if you're all the way at the other side of the map and you accidentally press up on the D-pad, teleporting way back where you started, you can actually turn this all the way up, and then you won't have a problem. You can just undo it. You could also turn off pedestrians and traffic if you're having some FPS issues. You can also disable crossplay. I find if you're having some lag issues, disabling crossplay helps, because then it's pretty much only players that are on your specific platform are going to be in the server. I keep crossplay on. I haven't had any problems with it yet, but if I do encounter some lag, I usually just turn this off and it's a bit smoother. And then everything else doesn't really matter. You can just change these to your preference. Okay, now going into the most important part, which is gameplay settings. So I use the experience control scheme. Honestly, I haven't played Streamlined or Classic. Experience is just what I know. It works best for me. I'd say if you're not sure, try all three, but for me, this is the best one. My flicker sensitivity is at 0. Previously, I had this set to 100. I thought that having this set to 100 actually gave you more control over your pop height and your flick speed, but it turns out having this at 0 gives you more control over your pop height and flick speed. If you want to have more control over how high or low you pop your trick and how slow or fast you flick your trick, keep this at 0. The rest of these I have off. They're just personal preference. Forward to pump is something that I find really useful. It just means instead of using the left and right triggers to pump, you just hold up on the left stick. And honestly, I think it just makes life a little bit easier. This works better for me. It feels better. Hold fakie stance is a super important one that I always recommend turning on. What this does is if I do a 180 trick to fakie, I will stay in fakie stance until I push. Once you push, you go back to just regular switch stance. This also counts if you go from switch back to regular, you will stay in nollie stance and you'll hold this nollie stance. If it was more of like a hold switch stance, this would look more natural, but it is hold fakie or hold nollie. So basically you have unique stees and unique kind of animations for this particular stance. So my switch tricks are actually looking switch. You can see the tray flip looks extra steezy, switch flip, switch heel, switch front shove. The animations are that of somebody skating switch, right? But if I push and I just go into the regular switch, it's just the same animations as your regular stance. They're just mirrored. So if you want that extra steez, you want to have hold fakie stance on. And as you can see, the same thing goes for nollie. If I'm holding nollie, even my regular tricks look switch. If you want that extra steez, then you want to keep this feature on. Okay, next up, I have all of these off. The only thing I have different is swap X and A while off board. I'm pretty sure that was on by default, so I haven't actually changed that. Okay, going into assists. Now, this is where you can really make this feel more realistic and more grounded. Grind assist amount set to 0. That means you're not going to have as much magnetization to a ledge or a rail. You're going to have to really kind of position yourself at the right angle to get on top of the ledge or rail to get into a grind. This basically means you just have more control. It makes the game a little bit harder to get into grinds, a bit more of a challenge. As you can see, once you get used to it, it's still fairly easy, and it's not like it's gonna make the game super frustrating. It's just all about getting over the ledge at the right angle and you'll get into it, but it just gives you that little extra challenge. Now, it's not 100% no assist. There is still a little bit of assist that the game gives you. It just gives you very minimal assist, but it's still a little bit of help there. You can kind of feel and see that the game does push you into certain grinds. But if you're coming from like Session or Skater XL and you don't want any grind assist at all, you want to make it as kind of challenging as possible, then put this to 0. third pump assist I also have at 0. Pumping is a bit more impactful, I find, and when you pump on transition with this on 0, you just get more speed. I feel like the assist kind of slows you down a little bit. Allowed fall height is at 1. This is just default. This basically controls how high you can jump off things. So with my allowed fall height at 1, I can make a pretty big drop, but I feel like this is a believable drop. It's not giant, right? I feel like in real life, you know, there's pro skaters that can do this drop. Shackler, Jaws, you know. If I set allowed fall height to 0, which is like super hardcore, so I compare this to like your more average skater experience who probably wouldn't be able to make certain big drops. Okay, so we can still make that drop. That's good to know. Okay, but let's go a little bit higher maybe and test this. So let's now try it from up here. So let's pop up in this platform and then this gap. Yes, so we can't make this with allowed fall height at 0. So this is a pretty big gap, to be fair. Maybe a little bit unrealistic, but if you want a very unforgiving fall height, then you want to set it to 0. All right, so now it's at 1. Let's see if we can make this drop. Yeah, okay, so we can make it now. And now if we set that all the way up at 2, we'll be able to make even bigger drops that 1 wouldn't let us. So I find that 1 is the sweet spot. You can hit pretty decent gaps and still land, but it's not going to let you do anything crazy. Like if we tried to ollie off that wall in front of us, it's not going to let us do that because that's kind of stupid. But something that's still somewhat in the realm of reality, we can jump off. So I find the best mix of realism and just enjoying the game. Allowed fall height at 1 is the best option. This also helps with challenges because if you have allowed fall height at 0, some challenges are impossible. Friendlier wipeout thresholds I have off. Basically, this just makes the game a little bit easier because you're less likely to fall running into walls and ledges, so I keep this off. Now, minimum pop height, I keep at 0. This and grind assist are the most important settings that you want for realistic gameplay. Having minimum pop height at 0 means that you have access to the lowest possible pop height this game has to offer. So it's really good for like doing really low to the ground flat ground tricks, so you can get some pretty low kick flips. You know, heel flips, tray flips, you can do really low. Now, you still have access to the highest pop height. You just need to really kind of hold it down. But it also just means that you can just pop as low as the game lets you. And I think this just looks really good in some situations. So 100% have this at 0 if you want the most realistic gameplay this game has to offer. The rest of these assists, I mostly have off. All these things just make the game easier. Require grab while flipping, I have on because I think it's more realistic that if you're going to do a backflip or a front flip, you need to grab the board. Any kind of assists, I typically have off. For trick toggles, I have everything enabled apart from Wallie's require quick ollie because I just like a regular ollie input for Wallies. But everything's on. This gives you access to all the tricks that this game has. Pre-wind spins are on as well. I use hold and spin direction, which for me is the most consistent method of pre-winded spins. So this means that when you're in crouch, you hold the left analog stick kind of in the direction that you want to spin, and then you'll get that nice pre-wind rotation. So this for me is the easiest way to pre-wind. It's the most consistent, so that's why I use that particular input. Okay, now moving on to the camera. A lot of you guys want to copy my camera settings, so here they are. I would recommend just screenshotting this. If you want like a nice low camera, this could be for you. Moving on to advanced camera settings, I have switch side controls enabled. This means when I tap the left analog stick, I can switch the camera from left to right, similar to Session or Skater XL. I also have dynamic side switching on, so in certain scenarios, the game will switch for me. Camera height control I have off because I never want to use the high camera. For onboard VFX, I have camera shake. I think it was just defaulted to 10. This just shakes when you go super fast. I'm never going at that speed really. High speed effects I have off. The camera kind of increases the field of view. I hate the way this looks, so I keep this off, and then you have a much more consistent normal camera without any of the effects. So that is all the gameplay controls. We're going to move over to the graphics controls for people that want to have graphics dialed in similar to mine. For context, I am running a Ryzen 5 5500 with a GTX 1660 Supers. So it's a pretty old system, but it runs this game very well. I keep it running at a solid 60 FPS. I only have a 60 Hz monitor. I don't need to go over 60 FPS. This works for me. 1080p as well. I have VSync on because VSync helps a lot with recording. Dynamic resolution off. Upscaling is FSR balanced. So for my graphics, I typically play on high. I don't really see a point in playing on ultra. High just gives me, I guess, a bit of a smoother gameplay experience. And I've started playing with motion blur off. I think motion blur off just makes things a little bit clearer. When your board is flipping and stuff, I think you can just see it a little bit better. And I don't know, I just like the way it looks with motion blur off. You guys can let me know if you agree or disagree. Okay, quickly in audio settings, one thing you guys really will want to know is gameplay V comments disabled. You can turn off V's comments when you're like doing emotes or you land a good trick. V will comment, so you can turn these off. I recommend doing that. I also have streamer mode enabled, which is a really nice feature for when I'm doing videos. That means that I'm not getting copyrighted with music that's in the world. Going into the accessibility options, I keep my field of view at 60, and I also have my off-board field of view at 60, so it doesn't change when I'm getting on and off board. This is just much more consistent. Alright, so there you go. That is all my settings for Skid, and if you want your game to look and play like mine, then those are the settings you want to use, but I definitely recommend playing about with them yourself. You might not like certain settings that I have, so, you know, mess about with it yourself and see what you like so you can get this game dialed in. So now we're going to move on to some little gameplay tricks and tips that are also going to help you get a better, more realistic experience out of Skid. So one thing that I've done today, which I do recommend, is if you have a controller that has paddles. So I'm currently using the GameSir G7, which is a really good controller. I highly recommend. It has these two back paddles here. I've actually mapped these back panels to A and X, which are the two pushing buttons. The reason for this is now my no complies are super consistent because I'm using the back paddles. Instead of actually having to tap A or X, I'm just tapping the back paddles where my fingers are at anyway. Like, my fingers are naturally here with my grip. So it just makes no complies that a little bit more consistent. This is just something that I did today, and I actually really like the change. I think it works really well, so definitely recommend if you do have paddles, yeah, just map them to the pushing buttons and try it out for yourself. See if you like this. You guys know that I'm a big no complier in this game, so for me, it's just nice to have these way more consistent. Okay, now I want to talk about low pops out of grinds and manuals, because there's two different ways you can do this, especially when it comes to manuals. So I've already spoke about this briefly, and there's been other videos from Stoke and Milky as well about the low pop method that has been in the game since Skid 2. Basically, it's where you bump out of a grind, but you do your trick input late, and then you'll do this like really low flip. So right there, but I bumped out with my analog stick, and then I did my kickflip input, and you got this really low, basically no pop kickflip out of a grind. So this method does take a lot of practice to get used to. I still haven't got it down myself. It definitely works the best with 50-50s, but it also works pretty well with manis as well. I'm going to show you in some manuals. So let's get a nice manual on this, and then what we're going to do is I really kind of wait until we're off the ledge, and then I do my kickflip input. It kind of fell off the ledge first, and then I did my kickflip. I feel like if you're just going for some kind of quick, realistic skating as you're just cruising around, it does look pretty cool in some situations like that. But there is actually another method to get some low pops out of manuals that looks a bit more natural, because you actually do pop out of the trick. So basically, try not to touch the sides of the analog stick. Try and do like a really subtle kickflip input. Okay, so that was pretty low. That looked alright. We can maybe try and get one out of a nose mani. That was really nice. So I basically did a really gentle nollie flip input out of the nose mani, and it was a much lower pop and looked much more realistic. This method might be a little more consistent than the late pop method, but it's just one that kind of, that was really nice. One that just, in my opinion, looks more natural and looks better than the late pop method. So let's compare that to the late pop method. So mani, and then fall off, and then do the kickflip input. So you can see that it looks a little bit weird in slow motion. It does look nice while you're playing, but I think in the replay, a lot of the time, it can look a little bit bizarre. Okay, so I think I did it there. So this one, to me, just looks a little bit more realistic, you know? That was a pretty low pop. We still covered quite a bit of ground, but you can definitely get it better than that. It just is harder to do, I think, than the low pop input. I definitely recommend just practicing both inputs, but it will help you get lower pops. While I'm here, I might as well also show you guys how you do a no-comply Wallie. This is more of an exploit, more of a glitch. I spoke about it before, but I didn't want to show it off because I didn't want it to get patched. But you know what? Other people are talking about it, and it's pretty well known. So I might as well just show you how to do it here. You need to head into your gameplay settings. You need to go to assists, head down to auto curb pop, and you need to turn that on. What you want to do is you want to approach a curb extremely slowly, and I mean really slow, and you want to tap A or X as you approach the curb, and you'll see you do a little no-comply like Wallie up the curb. You need to be going super slow for this to work, so it's not exactly the most viable trick to do in a line. So it is like a silly little exploit, but it is still pretty cool that it is possible to do in-game. And it looks really good in my opinion. It makes me think that potentially it's going to be a feature at some point, and this is just kind of like a workaround for now. And I really hope they add this to the game officially, because it looks so nice. Yeah, just keep practicing it. If you can actually throw this into a line and you can make it look good, then yeah, that would be really sick. I'd love to see that. Okay, I also quickly want to cover no comply variations and Slappy variations as well. I'm just going to throw this in here to help some people who might be struggling, because the game doesn't tell you about any of this. You just have to figure it out yourself. Stoke did a really good video on Slappies that I recommend watching. We'll quickly cover no complies first because there's not as many variations. So you can just do regular 180 no complies like this. You can kind of do shifty no complies if you fight against the rotation, and that's kind of the closest you get to straight no complies. Frontside no comply, you want to be turning to your left frontside in order to do them. Backside no complies, you want to be leaning backside, so into the right in front of your skater if you want to do backside no complies. If you have hold fakie stance on when you're in either fakie or the nollie position here, if I tap A and do a no comply input, you can do nollie no complies, front side and back side as well. You can also do fakie no complies, but you actually need to press X instead of A in order to do that. So your pushing foot switches. So I've noticed that fakie and nollie no complies can be quite inconsistent sometimes. The input doesn't work. So again, you just need to work on it and just try and get more consistent and more used to the controls. There's a nice nollie one. But just so you know, there is other no comply variations other than just these two. Alright, so let's talk about Slappies, another one of my personal favorite additions to this game. If you just ride into a curb and you just kind of turn into one, you will do a 50-50 Slappy like that, and you can do that front side, back side, switch, fakie. Every stance you can do that in. If you hold down on the right D-pad as you approach a curb, you'll do a Slappy 5-0. If you hold up, you'll do a Slappy nose grind. But you can also do different variations. If you want to do like a backside board slide, hold the analog stick to the left and approach. If you want to do front side, you do hold the right analog stick to the right and approach the curb. And if you switch that up, you can do lip slides as well, which look really good. I love lip slide Slappies. They look so nice. But then you can also do tail slides and nose slides, but you have to be crouched in order to do these. So I basically need to do like a kind of slow, blunt input or like a semicircle, right, to get into like a nose slide like that. If I do it the other way, I'll get into a nose blunt, which looks so sick. And then instead of nollie, if I want to do regular, I have to be crouched in regular mode and do the same input, but obviously in kind of regular ollie mode. And you do a regular blunt slide, a tail slide, which kind of goes into Susky a lot of the time. But yeah, it pretty much unlocks a whole bunch of different Slappies that you probably didn't know existed. So again, I recommend watching Stokes' video, which kind of goes over it more in depth. Definitely watch the controller overlay at the bottom if you want to kind of copy the inputs. It's kind of hard to describe. But once you get these other Slappies unlocked, it just opens the door to so many other new tricks, and I love that. And you can also like turn while you're in a Slappy, which means you can obviously kind of modify the Slappy. That actually reminds me that I also recommend turning prevent low air spins off. This means that you can turn better when you're coming out of Slappy tricks and like low grind tricks. And I suppose I might as well kind of talk about how you can turn in grinds as well, because maybe some people don't really know about this. I do think they talk about it in missions. While you're in a grind, if you move the right analog stick, you will actually get into different grinds. So you can go from like 50-50 to tail slide. What else can you do? Nose grind into like a nose slide like that. The Trickopedia isn't the most helpful right now. It does tell you about a lot of tricks, but there's also a lot of stuff that the game just kind of leaves out. So you kind of have to go searching for certain tricks yourself and certain little techniques and whatnot. One thing a lot of people don't know about is if you initiate a throwdown, which is like a kind of multiplayer game mode, you can actually use the D-pad left and right to make the area bigger and smaller. As you can see, I'm expanding the area. It goes quite far out. I think a lot of people just kind of use the default setting, which is honestly quite small. So yeah, you can expand these areas to be really wide if you want to open up a massive space for throwdowns. Another thing you might have missed in the quick drop option, when you go into objects, you actually have like a sub layer of different options. So you can see these objects that have a little plus icon. If I press X to customize, I have a few different options. I have a really small one, I have a medium one, I have a really big one. So you get a lot of different variations of like flat bars and stuff. All you can do is press X. You have a shorter one, a longer one, things like that. Even the dumpster has a couple different options. You can have a lid on it. Also, if other people's objects are getting in your way and they're blocking you or something, or people are trolling you, you can actually go into settings and you can turn off quick drop visibility. So if I turn this to mine only only my quick drop items are going to be available and other people's are going to be gone, you can just skate right through them. So I definitely recommend this. Another thing you might not know is that in the replay editor, you can actually zoom in and zoom out. You can change the field of view. I feel like some people might not know this because it doesn't actually tell you anywhere about this. Just use the left and right options in the D-pad and you can zoom in, you can zoom out. So if you want like more of a fisheye effect, zoom all the way out. It looks pretty goofy when you do this. And then if you want to zoom in all the way for like a long lens effect, you can do that as well. Just left and right on the D-pad. There you go. Also, if you want access to more like a little emoji things that you can do, if you just hold down left on the D-pad to open up the social thing, you can actually do proper emojis. But if you go over here, you have defaults as well. So you have default waving, default like hyping up, pointing and stuff. So you always have these like default options along with your extra ones that you can equip yourself. Okay, but honestly, I think that is everything that I can think of right now that is a little less obvious that some of you guys might not know about. I also hope you guys enjoy my settings if you use them. And yeah, let me know if you're using my settings, and let me know as well what your particular settings are. There could be some stuff that you change that you prefer different than mine. I would love to hear that. But hopefully for some of the new players here, I showed you guys some new stuff. That was pretty much the intention of this video. I just wanted to show kind of the new players here about all the stuff that the game doesn't tell you about, because this game does hide a lot from the player. Hopefully now you've learned a few new things. But anyway guys, that is going to do it for the day. Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Peace.